Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you Laura Rose Wood, coming to us from the USA. So, Laura, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Enolia. I live on the peninsula, so it's kind of north western of the continent of USA, and so I live up by Canada, and so I have started Healers Hub, and so quickly I can give you a synopsis of myself. I have been a healing practitioner and doing clairvoyant readings, healing work for 30 years. And I also have a degree in psychology and kind of focused on stress reduction and wellness focus. And then I also went into the healthcare MBA and was focusing on healthcare initiatives, looking at doing that, and then realizing that as a female without an MD, there's not a lot of work I can do. And so through my meditation practice and through a series of different events, I created Healers Hub, which is a global community focused on creating communities of belonging and bringing healing practitioners from all over the world that have been vetted and they're alternative. And so working with a diverse group of people.
So I want the audience to get the chance to know you. We're going to get to the Healers Hub. We're going to get to all this great stuff.
Right.
But here you are, this beautiful spiritual being. And there has to have come a time in your youth or coming up that you reach this fork in the road of what direction do I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
What brought you on your spiritual path? And then what brought you to the gift that you actually share?
Thank you for that question. Yes. What brought me to this path? Well, it's been my own healing journey. And so when I was young, in my early 20s, in fact, just right before that, I remember the first day that I sat and I started to think about self-love and taking care of myself and nurturing myself. And then kind of became this journey because of my own childhood trauma to want to do self-healing. And as a child, part of what I felt connected with, and one thing with my mother, she always validated my ability to see. So I would be able to see beings. I did healing work on animals. I did these kind of things that I kind of kept hidden, under wraps, my relationship to nature and kind of all of life, how I felt connected to the planet and how much I felt cared for by nature. So that's always been part of my relationship and what sustained me as a child. And so I started my own healing journey formally, I would say, when I was 21. And what I was hoping to do is to accomplish healing, being able to be free of some of the habits or some of the things that my own childhood trauma kind of kept me in, self-deprecating or, self-hate, and so
Yeah.
I was not expecting to go any farther than that, to be honest. So,
Wow. And then you talked about being a clairvoyant. And so that is a very special gift, that gift of connection, that gift of insight, that gift of knowing. How
yeah,
did you stumble on your, and I say stumble on our gifts because many of us are inherent, we have gifts, but
yes.
we don't acknowledge the fact that, okay, this is what it means and this is what it can do. And I'm going to consciously exercise that now, you know?
Yeah. I think that the one one aspect that I really feel grateful for is my mother never invalidated that. And I think that's what happens, is that she always validated me as a healer. As a child, because of that, I didn't shut that down. I hid it from society because of society, not necessarily from my
Yeah.
mom. I am kind of scientific in some ways too, and so a lot of times I've kept it under wraps. I would do things, healing type work on animals as a kid, and then my relationship to plants and to trees and to nature, and how it was very much that feeling of community instead of that sense of I'm a human being over, nature. It was more of being connected to that. And then when I was 21, I actually went to a psychic institute and had formal training in it. And so the
That's
techniques and the learnings that I had, that was a 10-year process. So I did a clairvoyant program that was a year, a very intensive process, which started off with the background of meditation and needing to meditate and using the techniques to self-heal. And so that was in my early 20s that I focused on. Through that process in my 20s, I used to be a landscape gardener, designer, so I worked with plants. What that allowed me to do is really focus on my own healing process. So I would spend 2 hours a day, in meditation, working on that.
So it's beautiful. So I'm gonna like digress a little bit here. We have to go back and forth with this, which is that I remember that when I first met my indigenous grandmother Isabel, and here I am in northern Canada, up in what was considered Warncliffe, which is about, I don't know, 6, 8 hours north of Toronto. Okay, north and west. And I'm going there and I'm in the nature all day long. And I finally get it. I finally understand that everything has energy, everything has a response.
Mm.
I'm singing to the plants.
Mm.
I'm feeling the plants are singing back to me. People would think I'm crazy. I'm hugging trees because the trees are hugging me. You know,
Mm.
everything's welcoming. And it clicks. I get it. And people don't get that. They kind of, like you said, the power over nature, no relationship with it. I was taught to ask permission before taking from nature, from any plant, or leave tobacco, which is like leave something of self to that plant to say, thank you for giving of yourself. And here's me giving of myself, so that it's an exchange of energy instead of just power over or taking from. And a lot of people didn't get it,
Yeah.
And I remember living in California for a period of time, and I had this favorite tree on 6th Street that I used to hug all the time. And I'd sit there and I'd hug the tree for a little while, and then I'd lay my back on that tree, and people would be walking by me, just looking at me like, okay, she's leaning up against that tree, and she kind of has her arms spread out backwards, and I didn't care. I
Yeah.
didn't care because that energy exchange and that relationship was so powerful. And was it like that for you?
As a child, I spent, so when I was really young, I lived out in the country. And so
Uh,
I would literally run out and my clothes would be left behind. And I would go tromping in the creeks and exploring. And I just always remembered this feeling of connection. I
mhm.
always felt this sense of being home. And it just I guess for me what it's been has always been a place of listening.
Yeah.
How can I hear, how can I listen, how can I acknowledge the existence, and seeing that and feeling that. And I feel so grateful for that. opportunity, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people don't have that, but all of us can have that. So I don't feel special in that, I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying is that I don't feel, it's funny that you're asking, because in some ways I don't talk a lot about this, because it's been part of my life. It's just part of my makeup and who I am. I mean, I have plants here around my house, all the time, and in that connection to plants.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't appreciate fully that connection to plants until one day I was in Joshua Tree,
Mm,
and I was at a woman's retreat, and I decided I'm going to get up early, bright and early before the sun rises. I'm going to go make my way out, sit, I'm going to drum, and I'm going to sing, and I'm going to bring in the sunrise that way. And then, I'll go back to the house and then do my regular day. And so I go out and I drum and I sing and I have my moment. I'm excited and it's all relaxing and I'm just at peace. And then I get up to go back to the house and I can't find my way.
mm,
And if anyone knows Joshua Tree, it's in the desert. It's part of the desert and it is very, very rocky. Okay. And I don't mean rocky like pebbles, I mean boulders. And you could easily lose your way and not find your way back and die of dehydration. It's like no joke. But there I am standing. I've lost my direction. And I'm going, Dear
mm,
God, dear Spirit, please show me a way. And then all of a sudden, this peace washed over me. And it said, Ask the plants.
mm.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And like, there's these very, very, very little vegetation. And so no wind, stillness, stillness everywhere, like so much silence that you can hear your own heartbeat, silence. And I asked the plants, I'm like, plants, can you please show me the way? Can you please move in the direction that I'm supposed to move? And people would say I'm crazy, but they did. They moved. I walked past one that moved, and then I would look around, I spied another one, and I just sat there and I watched it for a little while, and then it would move or it didn't move. And I walked in that direction, and I was just downhill from where I needed to be able to see where it was that I was staying. But had I gone in the other direction, which was my inclination, I would have I would have gotten completely lost. And then on
Wow.
top of that, even though I was just downhill, you could shout and nobody would hear you because of the way of the layout of the land. And people were actually shouting and talking loudly when I got there
Wow.
outside. I hadn't been able to hear them, but the plants moved me in that direction. And I guess I'm sharing this story is because what you're talking about is so powerful, and so many people don't get that underlying understanding behind it. And I want to talk about that relationship between nature and humans and how powerful it really, really is because it can make a difference in your life, make a life-saving difference in your life if you don't respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really quite amazing. And it kind of reminds me of this experience I had. Actually, I was going to Sedona, kind of on, not on the walkabout because we were driving, but it was essentially that. And I was in the Death Valley. And I'm
Mm.
a real water person. I'm not so much a desert person. And there was this feeling of, I had this feeling. So going back to that sense of connection where I felt really not connected to the land there. And in fact, I felt like this real strange sense of like I was this watery, my body felt like this water bag. If anything, I felt like, man, they would like to just suck me dry. It's just this
Yeah.
thing. I felt really unsafe. I felt really uncomfortable. And I really, the other piece of it besides plants is the four elements for me, is those are really important elements for me. And the water element is really important in the fire and the wind, but it's funny because I didn't feel as much connection to the earth element. So this is what happened. I was walking in Death Valley, and I was walking with a friend, and I was like, let's go into this little crevice here. And I felt moved to go in that crevice, and I was there. And all of a sudden I was aware of these beings, these really tall beings. And they were the representation of the earth element. They were like crystalline beings. And then they did some work on my force. I felt this click, 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 click. And I just felt something shift in me. And it was like this completion feeling. And all of a sudden I felt this connection to the land. And it was that earth element. And it just really, that sense of how much, if we allow ourselves to be connected with nature, and how important it is, and how it brings a level of belonging. For me, my experience is that I don't feel alone. I feel like I belong, and that I have family.
Yes.
So it's really interesting, and that's what I needed. There was something in completion for me.
Yeah.
So,
So it's funny because we're talking about earth and air and fire and water. I could tell you, I'm a water being. I love the water. I think we had this conversation before. It was interesting because in my dream time, I've been connecting and have connected a lot with the stars and the
mhm,
cosmology and the
mhm,
planets. And, many people don't think about that unless they're a mystic,
mhm.
that the cosmology can have a strong connection to you just as much as the earth or water or air or fire or wood,
Yep.
for that matter. And that you can have a relationship with the planets
Mhm,
and be able to view the gateways
mhm,
and be able to understand the mechanisms or the energy behind the sun
mhm,
or the moon. And that we, again, love to, in the general public, just go, yeah, whatever you mean about that. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is a real part of who we are.
is.
And this is an aspect of ourselves that we deny, quite a few people deny within themselves. To understand that when that moon comes out to full moon and the energy is all surrounding us, that it changes our energetic status.
Mhm.
It changes our being, it shifts it, it surrounds it, it impacts it.
Yeah.
And we don't want to acknowledge those pieces of ourselves. And in that relationship also brings forward a force within you that is just so powerful. And I'm not talking about, oh, I'm powerful, but just like an understanding of clarity, a knowingness, uh, uh, I can't put words to it, you know, but an aspect of us that
Yep.
has always been residing there in the stars. Your thoughts?
Oh, yes. No, I agree with you. It's so funny you were bringing that up, because last night, or no, not last night, this morning, I was up early and I went out and I looked at the stars. I'm fortunate to have moved to a place where I can see stars, now.
Hmm.
I used to live in the
Yeah.
city. I never saw stars, and how much, again, it's that understanding. I think it's so beautiful because it's like the understanding of, like, we each have a place in the stars.
Hmm.
We're part of this galactic conversation, this expansiveness, spaciousness, and being able to have that and see that there's so much beauty in that and possibility, and what is it? Potentiality, of that's what comes up for me when I look at the stars, it's that openness,
Yeah.
mystery.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
And then for me, every once in a while, having that overwhelming feeling of really, really seeing how much that I felt like that speck of sand on the beach
Yeah.
in the midst of the universe, taking that look down over the world, but then that look up and around for the expansiveness and going, it's so big, it's so big, it's so big, it's so big. But knowing that no matter how big it was and how expansive it is, that I have my place there. I have
Yes.
my place. We all have our place there amongst the light codes and the beauty of it all.
Yeah.
So I love just being able to have that general conversation because you can't always have it with everyone who
Yes.
who understand. And it's
Yeah.
so important for people to realize that as we talk about this, it's okay to talk about. It's okay to acknowledge. And yes, there are those that acknowledge it and would welcome the conversation with you.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that piece of it with me.
Yes. Yes. And I think you touched on a really important point there, is giving people permission to have a conversation without fear, including myself, because, as being in the business world, and, for me, when I dipped my toes into academia, which I needed to go through that journey, there's a lot of fear that people can get into, which I think a lot of people, which is interesting. There's people in academia, there's people in healthcare, there's people in all that have experiences that they feel like they can't talk about, or notions, or these moments of awe. So it's not even just these moments of like a fear. So sometimes people have a fear of talking about the moments of awe and sheer magnitude of beauty.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Not feeling that they have a safe space. For me, it was corporate. I worked in corporate. And, oh, we don't talk about that. How did they term it? Woo woo stuff. We don't introduce that woo woo stuff here in this environment.
Right.
Whereas the fact remains that if you could take any one of those people outside of that environment, they would be ready to have a conversation with you to ask questions, or what are your thoughts, or what's been your experience in the first place. But this is a perfect segue into what you offer. Tell
Yes.
our audience a little bit about how you created a safe space and how you welcome that conversation through your work.
So thank you. So how, and this is part of why, I'm this kind of juxtaposition of the woo woo, as you call it. I've done finance and business. So it's like this kind of space of like, how can you have a safe space that's grounded, that's, there's a container, that holds you in that space of being able to have that place to understand, have that place to question or reflect or communicate, or dance it out, however you want to do it. And then the other piece of it, there's the other part of it too, is that you've sought out different aspects of help that haven't worked, that you
Right.
actually, the help has been more detrimental. So for example, I'll use myself as an example real quick. When I graduated out of my school, I didn't realize until after that I was super anemic. Like I had to get blood transfusions for like 6 months every week. And I found out about that with a naturopath, and it's like that is the only way I found out, and it's changed my life. I mean, it's amazing that I was able to go to school. I was so low. And I mean, they called me the next day and say, you need to come in right now, you know. And
Wow.
and so that's an example, like a physical example of something, and then the other piece of it is that there's many of us that are having these experiences and don't know where to go to. And so part of what I wanted to create was two things. A place for alternative practitioners to come together for support of each other. A place that has credibility as we grow, as a place to know that this is a place that is vetted, credible alternative healers. And so that's one aspect, and creating a community where people can come together and be able to have a safe space to talk freely, to be able to be themselves and to explore, who am I intrinsically? Who am I in relationship to nature? Who am I in my relationship to the stars? Who am I in relationship to each other humans? And finding that space that's safe, that is being held by other, for the elders in the group, which is the container, and being able to not feel questioned, not
Yes.
having people look at you weird, you know. And so that's what I've done with the Healers Hub. We're in the process. We're still in that process of growing. We're still in that process of challenge. It's not a perfect place. We're not creating perfectionism here, but it is a place for us to learn so we can do something different in humanity. So we can come together as a group and be more compassionate. And how can we lead with compassion? How can we lead with listening? How can we lead with kindness, and understanding that we're here as a group. So the people that will be attracted to this are people that want to make the change. And this is a place to support that.
So, just so that our audience understands, Laura Rosewood has created the Healers Hub, where if you are seeking a sacred and safe space to come to be healed, to work with a plethora of elder healers, then this is where you would want to go. This is where you would want to begin. And you could see who you're attracted to in terms of the number of elders that she has that are healers of various modalities, bringing all kinds of beautiful talents and gifts to the Healing Hub. And then basically finding your space and finding what it is that works for you during that time. So, talk a little bit more about what the Healers Hub will do for people who join as a member.
Okay. So, as a member, what we want to do, first of all, is to keep it affordable. This is definitely not going to be a space for it's not an elite space. It's a space of belonging. So that is the first thing that I want you to feel, is that sense of belonging. For the membership, if you join as a member, you get free classes. So we have the elder founding practitioners offer free classes free podcasts. So that happens monthly. And so these are offerings just to let you know that you will learn something. It's not a sales webinar. So
That's
it is,
right.
it is live. There's going to be eventually some recordings, but it's not a directory. There's a directory, there's profiles, but this is not a directory. So this is a community. So you have the free classes, and then if you join at $20 per month, you get 20% off of sessions. And so that's a limited amount of sessions with the practitioners, and that can vary. You get the free classes, you get a 20% discount, plus we have community gatherings as a community, the members. So the members will have community gatherings led by myself. Sometimes it will be led with a practitioner. Sometimes it will be led by an expert outside of Healers Hub that works specifically around communities of belonging. So the idea is for us to work in a gathering where we do witnessing and different practices so we can be together in community. So there's that part of it. The other part that's will happen is that you're going to connect with other members. You'll be able to connect with other members. So if you travel, let's say you're traveling, you look at, okay, who's on Healers Hub? I want to go to California. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to, the UK. Who is in Healers Hub as a member? Who is Healers Hub as a practitioner if you want to do in-person type stuff? So right now it's mostly online, but eventually some people will be called to create hubs in person locally. So
Right.
there is multitude of different layers, much like the soil that Healers Hub is part of to nurture your growth and what that might look like for you. So that's basically it.
And I wanted you to highlight this because a lot of people are seeking. And what happens is that you're seeking, but you can't find that right place to stay or that right place to feel safe at. And I really wanted people to understand that what you bring to the table is truly a beautiful space that people can learn, be a part of a community that is truly a blessing. It's a blessing in every way. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So talk to us a little bit about being a clairvoyant. When did you start exercising that gift?
I would say that professionally, I exercised that gift when I was 22. So it's been over 30 years.
Okay.
And so that on a professional level, as a child, I used to, my mom would wake me up in the middle of the night and ask me, could you check the house out for beings? And I would do that, and I would be able to see things, and much to the adult chagrins, I would say things they don't like me to say. Would scare them. I would see things I'm not supposed to be seeing. So yeah, so in my 22, I've been doing that and reading. I don't do that much these days. I have people, but I don't do that because I'm really focused on the Healers Hub. And eventually I'll teach
Mhm.
classes again. So I've taught classes, and I have taught specific techniques for healing. And my clairvoyant focus has been pretty much around healing. And that's really where it's at. I do have the ability on a bigger scale to see things in the future. I don't focus on individual. I have friends that call me up and say, hey, was this what you were saying? So there's that ability to see what's coming down the pike, hence why I created Healers Hub. And so that's basically it.
That's so beautiful. What a beautiful journey and story that is in terms of it. Because a lot of people think that clairvoyance and whatnot is just something that you have and that you can't practice to learn or exercise to make better. But I have to tell, I remember that when I first encountered my first spiritual reading, all right, I'll never forget that I was in Angelica, New York, and I was out with the wives from the corporate sector, a bunch of us. We just get together just to be able to have a weekend and just downtime from the kids, the wife, the job, the blah, 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 blah. Our fearless leader had brought in or ensured that we were booked for the weekend at the bed and breakfast that we stay at when there was supposed to be a clairvoyant reader. And God bless her. I love this woman. Her name was Janet, Janice. And basically, we all came down for dinner. She took a picture of us because I just asked this woman, hey, can you take a picture of us? And this woman dressed in red, I didn't know her from anything, right? And she took our picture. And so then we're milling around and we're about to sit down for dinner. And she's staring at me, looking at her. And it's like, I'm talking to my friend, Susan. I'm like, do you see that this woman is staring at me? And she looked at her and she looked at me and she looked at her and she's like, yeah, she's staring at you. I'm like, what's going on, right? And so we eat dinner and I'm across the room from her. She's across the room. And, I just thought she was another guest. There's about 20, 30 people there. And when the time came to introduce the clairvoyant, it was her. And so she's introducing herself and she's talking, and the lights start flickering. So we know where the lights are, and they're
Yeah.
right there in the middle of the room. And somebody would have to go to that middle of the room and go up and down, up and down, up and down.
Right.
So her energy was so strong, it was flickering the lights. And we're like, okay, I'm taking this in. I'm just acknowledging it, right? But she's still staring at me. And so she finally interrupts her. She has been talking about 5 minutes now, 6 minutes maybe. And she interrupts her own speech. She goes, okay, that's it. That's it. And I'm like looking at it. She said, I know I've been staring at you all night long. I'm going to tell you why right now. You have an entourage around you, and they will not let me take my eyes off you. So I'm working with you first. And I was like, I didn't even know how to take that. I was like, okay, And so she finishes introducing herself, and then she comes and she lays her hands on my shoulder, standing behind me. And she proceeds to tell me that my family, especially my mother, they are all passed, has been trying to get my attention, and I was too close for them to get my attention. So the number one thing is I needed to open up. The second thing is they wanted me to keep my music. The third thing is that, and then they started listing all of the things that they wanted me to know.
Right.
It was that moment that changed my life. It was that moment that said, I got to figure out how to be open. And I started reading voraciously, and I started acting on what my heart said. And, I started longing for an Indigenous grandmother to meet. And then I finally met an Indigenous grandmother. And then I started, and it goes on and on and on and on, and everything stopped. But it started at that moment, that moment.
Wow.
And so to kind of finish the story up, I saw her a year later, and it was at like a craft show. And she invited me out for a cup of coffee, and we talked, and I told her how she changed my life. She changed the course of my life, and that I read, and I'm doing this and doing that and doing the other. And we had this beautiful, like, 2-hour conversation over a cup of coffee. And then we left and we exchanged numbers. And so the following year, when that craft show came up, because I knew she had driven from Rochester an hour away to get there, I was like, come, you're invited, stay at my home. We can go to the craft show together, etc. And when I called her number, and they were like kind of abrupt, and was like, who is this? And I'm like, well, my name's Enolia. We met in Angelica. We saw each other a year later at the craft show. She was with her sister. I wanted to invite her to my home, if you have to know everything. And they told me she had passed away.
Oh, wow.
And it
Wow.
hurt my heart so deeply, but it had also validated that she was half in this world, half out, and she was seeing everything from both sides. I mean, the knowing just came in right away, and the validation and the beauty of what she served in
Mhm.
my life.
Yep.
you know? And that's my clairvoyant story. So I guess I'm saying this because when people come into your life for a reason or for a season, you have to step back and honor and see why they come into your life,
Mhm.
see what purpose that they're serving, and see what shifts have taken place within you for that person coming into your life. Because sometimes it changes the course of your world to the better.
Yeah.
Because had she not done that, I wouldn't be sitting here now speaking to you, you know, having gone through everything that I've gone through in my life. Because she
Wow. What
shifted
a
it.
gift. What a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I love that story. You know, it's interesting because for myself, it's one of those things where a lot of the work I've done, again, it's that healing, but part of goes back to my concept of what healing is change. It's that evolution. It's not about the idea of like, well, I'm broken, I need to be fixed.
Mm-mm.
Some people look at healing as that. But it's change. And I know that for myself, when it's not necessarily someone signing up a session, but I have this tendency, I get involved in any situation, change starts happening. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it doesn't, on the outward, it doesn't seem that, and I've worked with a lot of people in removing beings. That's something I did a lot of. I'm really comfortable with seeing beings without bodies, as I call them. I'm not afraid. I simply see
It's
us
a
as that we
thing 'cause
have
a lot of
bodies,
people
we don't, you know?
right,
Yeah,
right.
and it's really simple, and they're all around, and it's just one of those things where once we understand, and there's times where people have seen that, and really in times of when a loved one has passed, people get afraid, or they invalidate the situation. They say, oh, it's my imagination, or this or that. And it's a way to just explain it, to make themselves feel safer. And for someone that kind of questions, like, okay, if I see something, if I'm aware of something like that, does that make I'm crazy, or this or that? And it's like, it's it's one of those things where, no, you can see or be aware of energy, and you're not, it's just, how do you respond to that?
Mm,
It's like, you can be grounded, you can understand. So I tell people, it's like, the fact that you and I have bodies, okay, we're beings with bodies, makes us very powerful. It's doing this with our, being here with our bodies is like not for the faint of heart. This is
right.
challenging.
It's very challenging.
And especially now, I mean, I guess in every, you know, historical sense, there's been a challenge, but it is challenging. And, and the beauty of it is kind of like the gift that she gave you at that moment, and seeing you and validating you. And it's like, and you took it. That's the other thing I want to say, is that she did that, but you allowed yourself to receive it. You could have poo-pooed it and go, oh no, but you didn't. And because of that, so many have benefited from that. So it's like that gift that keeps on giving, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because her giving me a message from number one from my mother, and I adored my mother.
Yeah.
Like she said, your mother and all of her sisters, there's a lot of women and there's a guy and the blah, blah, blah.
I love it.
only laugh because if you knew my family is very matriarchal.
Hmm.
And the women are strong. They're not strong, they're strong.
I can
And
imagine.
so I really didn't understand when she said, it made me laugh when she said, they won't let me take my eyes off you. And I just laughed because that's how they were in life.
Yeah.
And when they commanded your attention, they
Mm,
had your attention, you
right.
know? And you're right, because the first thing I wanted to do is my mother said this, I got to figure it out. No questions asked.
Yeah.
That resonated with me in every respect. I got goosebumps when she was telling me, I'm like, mm-mm, nope. I accept it. I receive it. I'm going to figure it out, mom. I'm there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a wonderful time to share like this too, because this goes to what you do as a foundation for people also, is that because you are bringing many diverse people in with all these various different modalities,
Hmm.
that as a member comes into the healing hub, they don't have to just resonate with one thing or one person or one being, that they can have a plethora of diverse modalities that they resonate with,
Yes.
and truly, truly embark on what it is that they want to do or
Yeah.
explore or
Yeah.
discover. And how
Yes.
beautiful is that?
Yeah.
That is so beautiful to offer.
Yes. And I wanted to find people that are vetted that they can discover and explore in a safe way.
Yes.
And being able to have that in itself without anything else is big.
It's huge. And I'm going to highlight vetted, meaning that you took the time to do the homework, the research, the wherewithal, and the look to
Yeah.
understand the backgrounds, the following, and everything that each one of these individuals have
Yes.
in order to be present in your organization.
Yes.
And so how that's beautiful. And thank you for that.
Yeah. You're welcome. I feel
Yeah.
incredibly honored. And it's just that thing of when I went into the healthcare MBA and the business thing and all that stuff, it didn't make any sense. But I
Mhm.
was told this is where I need to go. This is the next step. This is the next step. And I'm just like, oh, please, this doesn't make sense. Well, now it does, because all these things I can pull together and utilize that to create Healers Hub and make it so it sustains. It's a
Yeah.
sustaining entity on its
And
own.
not only that, I want people to understand how special this is that when you're dealing with a environment that doesn't offer what you're looking for, it's time for us to take pause and start creating our own frameworks,
Yeah.
creating the framework of what we want versus always trying to find a framework that just fits our needs. Because you might be round and everywhere you look is a square peg, and
Yep.
you just can't find that round head, that round hole that you're looking for, that fits perfectly with you. And so when you can't find it, and I've encouraged clients to do this, is that you can't find what you're looking for, then create it. Create
Yeah.
that environment that you're looking for. Create that scenario that you're looking for. Create the framework. Create that system.
Yes.
Something new to the world, because then that is your contribution to humanity. The fact that you took the time to place your ideas in alignment with what you truly desire and what your vision is. It's
Yeah.
important.
And we need that. That's part of, I did a lot of research before I did this, and there's not anything that I can find that's like a Healers Hub. And I'm assuming that as we grow, there will be other, organizations that will be similar. And I think that's wonderful. There's a lot of us on the planet. I
That's
don't
right.
expect Healers Hub to fit everybody, either. And that's not definitely not the point for me. There's so much intention and detail that's been thought of in Healers Hub, even as an organization, as we grow, to not have a hierarchy, to have a place where we're tuning in. So this is the through thread of Healers Hub. So this is another really important part that goes with the practitioners all the way to the members. This is the through thread, is learning. And this is part of the classes that will happen too, is learning how do you tune into your own information? How do you tune into what is right for you? How do you know? It's like with the practitioners, when I've worked with them in their offerings, like what resonates with you? What is it that resonates with you? Because it's starting to break the patterns of stuff that we have in our head, and all the habits that tell us the shoulds and all that stuff that tells us how we should act, instead of listening to ourselves and our innate self. And that is in alignment with nature. All this is in alignment with life. And that's the discovery that's been part of my journey. My own personal journey is trusting life and understanding. The more I listen to that, the more synchronicities happen, all the things that starts flowing. My way isn't everyone's way. It's just my way. And everybody has their way. And the people here, the practitioners, we're all coherent enough. We all are resonating and coming together. And that's part of the potency of the Healers Hub, is that resonance for all of us. So we can be that strong container,
Yes, yes, I do. So I want to keep going. I'm like so tempted to give you that next question, but I know that we're coming up on an hour.
Yeah.
So how can people get in contact with you? Will you share your contact information? What people need to do if they want to reach out to you as a practitioner or in regards to the Healers Hub?
Well, I will give you the link.
Okay. It'll be in the description when we
Okay.
broadcast this. So
Yes.
yes,
And
everyone, it
so
will be.
they can get on the link, and what they want to do is go to the website, and it's easy. You can join as a member. You get 3 different options. The scholarship price, and that's $8 US dollars, 15 US dollars, or 20. And I want to also say, if you live in a country that's the US dollars are high, always reach out. We're not going to turn someone away because they can't afford it. If you really can't afford it, it's a big offering that we're doing. And so you just go on the website and join there. And it's a wait list right now. So we're on the wait list process, and before we open up.
Excellent, excellent. So we will make sure that we offer that information in the description of this on YouTube and on StreamYard. So thank you,
Yes.
everybody. And, I just want you to know, Laura, that it has been such an honor and such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing your heart, your gifts, and your insights and your wisdom.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and bye-bye, everyone. This has been another episode of The Infinite